guys, Tambo here with your weekly core report. It's Thanksgiving week, and we've got plenty of members giving thanks for their big hits. Let's get to the winners. Our NHL content has been on fire lately. Nadesify led the way with his recent core helping him hit for over 1K. Mangone's core helped MComDog42 win 2K in NHL, and M. Levangie used the NHL playbook and premium Discord chat to ship for $20,000. In PGA, Alex used our free weekly PGA show to hit for 1K, while Jaywalkin shipped for $10,000. Just a reminder that a Run Pure Sports membership gets you all sports for one price, including our premium World Cup content. And for Thanksgiving week, we've got a special deal to get you on board. For a limited time only, sign up for a Run Pure Sports membership using the promo code TURKEY50 and knock 50% off your first payment on a monthly subscription. This includes SaberSim packages. You can't beat this deal, so make sure to sign up now. Our NBA and NFL content stayed hot this week. Reminder to sign up to our YouTube page to access all of our great free content streamed daily. In the NBA streets, Magic Muffin hit for 2K, while our guy Mangone continued to dominate Saturday NBA slates with a 9K winner. In NFL, I shipped 2 King of the Beach final seats, along with K. Fallick, who landed one too. RPS member DGAS33 will be joining us in San Diego after securing a seat of her own. Brandon Sports hit for 3K in NFL. Uncle Dunkle joined in with a 14K win. Statler shipped for 17K in NFL Showdown, and JSU joined him with a 17K Showdown win too. Congrats again to all our winners. If you want to be featured in our core report, drop your winning lineup in our Members Never Win channel in our premium Discord. If you're not a member, join now. You won't find a better value with all sports included for one low price. Once again, use the promo code TURKEY50 to knock 50% off your first payment on a monthly subscription. SaberSim add-on plans qualify for the discount too, so take advantage for a limited time while this deal lasts. While you're watching, hit that like button now. Remember, if you're not winning with us, you're watching us win. Until next time, let's keep running pure.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the NBA Hardwood Show on the Run Pure Sports channel, talking Tuesday's 4-game NBA slate on Draft Sheet. You know that. Joined today by Travis Mangone and Chris Randone, special guest. Chris Randone, what's going on, man? How you doing on this Tuesday afternoon?
What's up, man? Yeah, no, happy Tuesday. Nice little 4-game slate. Some brilliant minds here on the table. So I'm looking forward to talking with you guys and having some fun.
Yeah, I don't normally get the prized hosting duties on an NBA show, so happy to try to steer the ship in the right direction. We'll see if I can, lengthen this 4-gamer out for a full hour. Mangone, I know you don't want anything less than a full hour on Tuesday afternoon. How you doing? What do you think of this NBA slate?
No, I mean, I was on the bet show and I talked for an hour 15, so we can go however long you want, DC. I mean, you're driving the ship. It's up to you. And when you said special guest Chris Randone, I was like, are we gonna be like 5 years down the line doing Hardwood shows? And it's like, we're here with special guest Chris Randone. Is that like his automatic title going forward? I'm just wondering when the title gets lost or he's not.
You and I aren't going anywhere in life, so we'll still be here 5 years from now talking NBA on the afternoon show. And yeah, if Chris Randone is still making his sporadic appearances, he'll still be a special guest as far as I'm concerned. So
right. 5 years from now, you and I will be at Big T's house, right? I'll be staying in the basement again. We'll be on the slab. You'll be drinking noon. Just same thing as always here for us.
Yeah, as long as the high noons don't eventually catch up to me, 5 years from now, if we're still around, we'll still be here for the people talking NBA DFS. As we mentioned, a 4-game slate tonight, an interesting one. These last few slates have felt almost like, I don't know, like end of season NBA, where a bunch of teams are missing a whole bunch of guys, value all over the place. Even on a 4-game slate, there is still news that we are waiting on. We've got a bunch of news already, but still some pretty significant news. The biggest piece of news, I think, Ja Morant, who, if you looked at NBA early in the day, you would have assumed he was out, upgraded to questionable this afternoon. And obviously, if he plays, changes things in a big way for Memphis. So we'll see on that. I doubt we'll get it during the show, but of course we'll have the Up to Lock show for members. And we'll talk about that game second. Kind of talk about it. If he's in, if he's out, what you should do. But let's jump into the first game of the night. Brooklyn Nets and Philadelphia 76ers, 217 total in this one. The visiting Nets are favored by 7.5. A lot of stuff going on here. The Nets recently got Kyrie Irving back. He's even back for, I think, just a game or two. Obviously, we're being carried by Kevin Durant in his absence. And then Ben Simmons as well has been playing some better basketball. I know people like to hate on Ben Simmons, but I'm happy to see him out there, Rando. And I know he's gone through some stuff, playing some good ball. But the big story, going back to Philly, this will be the first game he actually plays in Philadelphia since, that whole situation fell apart. So that's interesting. The Brooklyn side is interesting. And then Philadelphia missing, I think arguably the three best players. Joel Embiid out for this game. James Harden, he's been out a while. And Tyrese Maxey hurt last week as well. So Maxey, Harden, Embiid all on the shelf. We'll see DeAnthony Melton. We'll see a lot of Shake Milton. And we'll see who Philadelphia ends up starting at center. It'll be, I think, probably Montrezl Harrell or Paul Reed. That's an interesting scenario. So really a lot going on in this game, Randall. We'll start with you. What do you see here, Philadelphia and Brooklyn?
Yeah, I think, start with the 76er side. Obviously, no Harden, no Maxey, no Embiid. One thing that stands out is Shake Milton. Right now, got him averaging, looking at a projection of like 34, 35 fantasy points. But he grades out pretty well as far as like the optimizer. He keeps populating a lot in optimal lineups. So his price tag at 5,300, he plays 34, 35 minutes. I'm totally okay with that. I think another thing that people are going to have to decide is, do you want to, pay up an elevated price tag for Tobias Harris? That's going to be another question. And, DeAnthony Melton as well. I mean, 7,500, 7,800. Is there other areas where you can get different tonight? Or if you're going to go to that value in the Nuggets game, obviously these guys become more affordable as well. So I don't mind them, especially if you're multi-entering. But I think the other question will be Paul Reed, right? You played the 4, I believe, the last game, and just looking kind of at the production so far, how many minutes does he get tonight? And what does that look like? And then you have to ask Montrezl Harrell, right? Whether he starts or comes off the bench, is there a benefit for either one? But for both of these guys, I have them around 15 to 16 minutes. But when it comes to like an optimal lineup and putting them in the optimizer, they don't really populate because tonight's not a night where, there's a lot of pay up options that are kind of sexy. And so that's interesting because then on the other side, you have to ask yourself, do you want to pay that price tag for Durant at 11.2 on DraftKings? And that's a price tag that, in my opinion, is like without Kyrie on the floor. But Kyrie is, playing tonight, or at least, up till now. And so if that's the case, like, what does that look like in regards to Durant's production and also his price point? And how many people are willing to go to that tonight? But for Kyrie's side, I think his price point of 9,400 is more realistic, and also on FanDuel as well. So I don't mind Kyrie on FanDuel as, for him, he actually comes out pretty well in the optimizer so far. Out of the entire team. So from that side of the ball, Kyrie, and then obviously Ben Simmons, like you mentioned, playing some good basketball. Is this a guy that we want to go to tonight? Is there some form of like revenge narrative here?
There is. Come on.
If they want to put that into consideration. But I think the biggest thing that, to close it out with this game for me is I don't mind Ben Simmons whatsoever. I like him a lot tonight. I think the only thing is like, what are they going to do with like him and Nick Claxton on the floor? Right now, throughout the year, they're a very negative team with both of these guys on the floor. Defense isn't good. Offense isn't good. So, how much longer do they want to have that to go? Because like they're, at a negative plus or minus right now, I think of like negative 16, 17, if I'm not mistaken. And the defensive statistics are absolutely horrible. So, will there be a change? What will that look like as far as the rotation? But Simmons at 6,300, if he continues to play this style, given the fact that no matter what Kyrie and, Durant are on the floor as well, I don't mind that either. But yeah, that's pretty much for me from this game.
Yeah, Simmons is interesting because, normally you wouldn't want players that like play with Kyrie and Durant because those guys take up so much usage. But Simmons is obviously like a non-scorer, non-shooter anyway, right? So he's hurt less, I think, by playing with two high usage guys. I mean, you could even argue he's helped by it because he can, he kind of spreads it out, gives him more options to pass to, rack up those assists. And the starting lineups for both these teams, Mangone, are very much in question. I think a lot of people's builds tonight will depend on who both these teams started, because last game, Brooklyn Nets were missing Nicholas Claxton, their normal starting center. They did start Simmons at the 5, I believe, whether or not it's officially was Durant at the 5 or Simmons at the 5. I'm pretty sure Simmons was kind of playing the 5 defensively. So he's essentially kind of almost a point center. Obviously Kyrie Irving can play some point guard too. And Philadelphia missing Embiid, if Nicholas Claxton current questionable to play. I assume if Claxton plays, I bet he will start. And then I think Simmons, I think they said they're going to start him anyway. So he'll slide down, maybe start at the 4, where whatever they want to label him. But if Claxton is out and Simmons starts at the 5, then you could see Philadelphia put potentially both Reed and Montrezl Harrell on the bench and go with PJ Tucker at the 5. So that's interesting how the starting lineup shake out. I think that affects a lot. And then the Philadelphia side, Tobias Harris is expected to play, but this team, they lose so much usage with Harden, Embiid, and Maxey all gone. Like they're playing guys that just have extremely low usage. PJ Tucker, like not shooting the ball like literally at all. Matisse Thybulle is a total non-factor on offense. So it really puts a lot on the table for guys, for Melton, for Shake Milton, for Tobias if he's in there. And then I think whoever's ever the center, Paul Reed or Montrezl Harrell, at least when they're on the court, I think are going to be asked to do a lot. But like Randone said, the minutes for those two guys are in question. So a lot of moving parts in this game. I think it's just really interesting to try to break it all down and put the puzzle together. What do you see here, Mangone?
Yeah, I mean, obviously a good game to talk about. It's also an hour and a half before we're going to get like that Bones Highland news, right? And like some of this other news that could come through as well. So some we might get, some we might not, and that a decision will have to be made. Let's kick it off with the Sixers first. And if for some reason PJ Tucker does start at the 5, I'm not expecting Montrezl Harrell and Paul Reed to play that much together, where that would just hurt them even more. And
I don't think Harrell and Reed will play much at all together unless.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. If Tucker starts, right, that would even hurt them even more. And it would condense more minutes to like a Tobias Harris. Like you might see like Tobias, like in this like Kyle Lowry-esque role where he plays like 40 to like 45 minutes tonight, like just something insane. I mean, he has been out for a little while. And someone asked in the chat if he's going to play. Yeah, he's expected to play at this point. So I just think like, that would be really big news, obviously. And he's going to be playing next to guys like Daniel House, who doesn't shoot the ball a lot. This would obviously be good for Melton. I think Milton is the better option for the 2,200 less. I would prefer going him instead. So at 5'3", I think he's a really good option. And I'd rank him Milton as probably my number 1. I'd probably put Tobias 2. You could make the argument Harris maybe could slide in at the number 1 spot just because maybe you need that forward raw point spend ups, which that goes back to the point that we were talking about with Kevin Durant before. I mean, Randone brought up, he likes Kyrie's tag better than Durant. And I totally agree. I think the one argument you could make is if some of the value plays crush at the guard and center position, you might need a raw point spend up forward. And if like a Devin Booker doesn't go for like 70 or an Anthony Davis, that's how Kevin Durant could come into the equation as an interesting play. I'm curious what his ownership is going to be. Not saying I'm forcing Kevin Durant on any teams, but I'm going to go into SaberSim, right? I'm going to run the optimizer and see, hey, how much Kevin Durant does pop up, because I do at least want to acknowledge he could be a raw points guy in your lineups today if the guards crush, right? But there's certain paths that have to happen for that to work out. Ben Simmons, it is a pretty good spot, especially if Claxton is going to be out. That's going to be really key at 6.3K. Another way you could sometimes be different is maybe you just plug Ben Simmons in at the center spot and you just say, hey, I'm going to like play a bunch of forwards, right? Like you put a forward in the util and you're just loaded up on forwards everywhere because he has center eligibility. And most teams I've ran are not doing that. And sometimes I think it's like really interesting if like, let's say you're playing, like there's been some of these guys, I'm trying to think of a good example, but like some people, they're like, hey, shooting guard, you're plugging in like Shake Milton there for sure. And let's say he had small forward eligibility. Sometimes I just put him in the small forward spot, just get a completely different construction than the field. So that's something I had kind of thought a little bit about with Ben Simmons of how you can make a slight change like that. And that would give you a little bit of a different construction than other people. Anything else in the Nets? I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to take a chance on. It's really tough. Obviously, the Claxton news is nice. I know Wannabe has been pretty good and been playing well. If for some reason Claxton out, I think Wannabe would get a little bit of a bump up. Not someone that I'd be prioritizing, but someone that I would kind of put in the pool and I'd be considering maybe as like a small differentiation piece. And then that Sixers side, obviously that starting lineup is going to be important. But for me, I think I want to play more Nuggets than Sixers on this slate. I like Milton, I like Reed, Melton, and Harris, but to me, it seems like I think I'm going to play a max of like 2 Sixers. And I even don't hate the idea of just playing 1 Sixer and then kind of moving on. That's kind of my thought process with my single entry lineup.
Yeah, depending on who the Sixers start, it sounds like I'm maybe a little bit higher on Melton than you guys are. I get the 7,500 price tag is a lot, but man, they are so thin in the backcourt with Harden and Maxey out. I kind of think this is a similar situation a little bit to the Heat last night, where it's kind of an all hands on deck situation a little bit for the Sixers, where I kind of want to play these guys together some, because I think they've all got to have good games to keep this game close. I actually wouldn't be shocked to see Brooklyn. It seems like this team is rallying a little bit. Simmons playing well, to see them kind of go into Philadelphia. I mean, Philly fans are going to be booing Ben Simmons. It's going to be really entertaining to watch, but I wouldn't be surprised if Brooklyn kind of laid the wood here a little bit. But if this game stays close, I think you're going to see potentially 40 plus minutes out of all of Melton, Milton, and Tobias Harris. I know they're somewhat expensive, but I think all three could potentially go off. And then you could see the minutes kind of mixed and matched between House, Thibault, Tucker, Harrell, Reed, right? Like those guys all seem, depending on what Brooklyn does, I can see those guys kind of coming in and out of games and Doc trying to play matchups. But I think for Philadelphia to play well and put up points, I think Melton, Milton, and Harris all have to have big games scoring the basketball, just because this team is so devoid of scoring other than those three guys. So yeah, I'm excited to watch this one. I'll be in on the Philadelphia, the playmakers, the guys who can create their own shot. That's Melton, Milton, and Harris. And then on the Brooklyn side, I guess kind of surprisingly, Ben Simmons himself is the guy I'm most interested in. I just don't see getting up to Durant or Kyrie. Those two cut into each other. I don't really think they cut into Ben Simmons all that much. And I don't know. I kind of think Ben Simmons is either going to go off here, Randone, or go into a little shell and, succumb to the boos of the Philadelphia crowd and not do a whole lot. Any final takes, Randone, on Brooklyn and Philadelphia?
No. I love both perspectives from your guys. And yeah, he either succumbs and kind of is brittle tonight and breaks apart like the past, or he rises up to the occasion and pays off his price tag. I mean, that's just a risk that you have to be willing to take. But if he does get those 30 plus minutes and, if he's doing things on both sides of the floor, could be an optimal play. So I don't hate it tonight, to be honest with you. Yeah,
I think he's got a chance to really do a lot defensively here too. I mean, he's a really good perimeter defender. Like, he can defend the 1 through the 5, and Melton and Milton are going to be asked to do more than they should be asked to do, just be out of necessity. You could see steals, Simmons getting out in transition. So yeah, I do like him quite a bit tonight. We'll move on to the second game of the night. Before we do, just a reminder, a lot of people watching, but the ratio of viewers to likes needs to come up. So hit that like button. Really does help us out, allows us to bring this free show to you guys each and every day. So let's get that like number up for the plays of the day at the end of the show. And we are running a Thanksgiving promotion right now here over at Run Pure Sports. Turkey 50 will get you 50% off your first month's payment. And that does apply to SaberSim, the optimizer that we love over here at Run Pure Sports. It does apply to that as well. So a great time to get in, join the movement, join the winner circle over at Run Pure Sports. Again, that's Turkey 50, 50% off your first month's payment. With that, let's jump into the second game of the night. Sacramento and Memphis. Grizzlies 1-point home favorites here. Highest total on the night, sitting at 234. The big news that we're waiting on is Ja Morant, who, he got injured on Friday. They were saying he's going to be out like week to week. They were saying initially, Mangone, and now he was doubtful to start. He missed one game that he was doubtful to start today, upgraded to questionable. I kind of think he might end up playing in this game, and his ankle just responded super well for whatever reason. So we'll see on John Morant. Obviously, if he's in, he's always in play. I would assume he's good to go. If he's out there, he only missed one game. If he sits, Tyus Jones becomes an option at 5,900. But with Memphis also missing Desmond Bane, they're kind of thin. So if Morant sits, Bane already out. Dylan Brooks, what do you get up? 30 shots on Sunday. You've got to take a look at him at 7,300 on DraftKings. And then they also did recently get Jaren Jackson Jr. back from a serious injury. He's played 2 games, exactly 25 minutes in both the games, but played pretty damn well. Played well against New Orleans in his first game back, and then put up 52 fantasy points, 25 real points, 12 rebounds, 3 blocks, 2 steals in just 25 minutes against the Thunder. 6,400. The upside, I mean, you can't argue with it. He just put a 52 fantasy points in his last game, in his second game back from a serious injury. So Jackson at 6,400 has got to be in consideration. Sacramento, a little bit more straightforward. De'Aaron Fox, Sabonis kind of doing their thing, but I'm not sure if I'll end up going there tonight myself. Talk about the Memphis Grizzlies and Sacramento Kings, Mango.
Yeah, not a glamorous game on the slate, not one you're trying to slam everyone from your lineups in. If Ja is out, though, you are going to want to try and consider some of these Memphis Grizzlies. So if Ja's in, you're not as excited about these guys. I think Jaren Jackson's fine if Ja is in, though. He's kind of an interesting debate between him and Ben Simmons. Has a low floor, but also has a really high ceiling. So you have to decide if you want to take on that risk. I think it's a very similar conversation between the two of them. If Ja Morant is in, no one would really be on him. And if you wanted a contrarian spend up, you could go there, and of the point guards, he would kind of be one of them. I think would not be a bad one to consider. When it comes to Ja being out, I do want to call this out. So I understand Dylan Brooks checks. I definitely hate Dylan Brooks, and I have bias towards him. I do not play him in these spots. The dude's 7,300. He's going to have to pay off you got to do a lot to pay off that tag. Yes, the matchup against the Kings is great, but I do want to read some of the game logs with Ja Morant out so far this year. And I assume, DC, would you agree? He's probably, if Ja Morant's out, Dylan Brooks becomes 30 to 40% owned. Would you agree he has some ownership?
Yeah, these game logs you're going to read, I bet Bane is in there, most of them, though, which makes a huge difference as well.
That would matter. I don't know if I can pull them both out, but from what I have on StatViews, right, it's a very mixed bag. 52.75, 27, 45.5, 19.25, 45, 34.5. I guess the point I'm getting at is they're a very mixed bag. And some of those, the shots go in and some of them they don't, right? That's kind of one of the keys. The Desmond Bane point is good. I didn't think about that, and that is probably fair. I'd have to dig through each game log. But if he's a high-owned play and it's 7,300, he does have to do a lot for his price tag to pay it off, where he becomes a very interesting tournament fade, even if Ja is in. There's a lot of good forwards to like on this slate. We talked about Tobias Harris. We haven't talked about the Nuggets forwards. There's a ton of interesting options that we can go to at this position that I would consider a possible fade. Also, there's Tyus Jones, who would be great at 5'9" that you'd want to consider. Also, Jaren Jackson Jr. Yes, he's not a huge, usage guy, but he would be back, and he was not back in those other situations.
Right.
That's another small thing to note. Overall, though, I don't want to play many Memphis Grizzlies, and I just wanted to call it out because I do think that the Ja Morant situation does matter. I do want to talk a little bit about the Kings because one common theme on this slate is everyone is probably playing Devin Booker tonight. They love him. He's a really good shooting guard option, but what's your stud pivot? There aren't many stud pivots, right? And if there are stud pivots, it's Sabonis or Fox. Do I want to play that guessing game? Not my favorite options. Kevin Durant at a very ridiculous price tag. Anthony Davis, his price tag is inflated. Russell Westbrook at 8.3. That's not a great tag. The point I'm getting at is some of these studs that you're paying for, they're tough tags. And that's the same situation here with Fox and Sabonis, who have to deal with Steven Adams' defense down low. Got to deal with Jaren Jackson, who has some length. It's just not the easiest spot for these guys where it makes it tougher to roster, especially at 9.6 for De'Aaron Fox and 9.5 for Sabonis. Just not my favorite tags. If I do play anyone, it's probably Malik Monk at 5.1. But I think this is a game that I'm kind of crossing off right now. I'm trying not to get too much exposure to it. And hey, that's okay to do on these slates. You don't have to get exposure to every single game. Sometimes you kind of ship a slate because it's a 4-gamer and you only play 2 of the games. You don't even get exposure to the other 2 games. And when they dud, you're set. And there's also some really expensive tags on these players where I think we can stay away from these guys. There's no screaming value that sticks out, and I'll just let other people kind of play this game, even though it's one of the best implied totals on the slate.
Yeah, I think a lot of this game really depends on obviously if Ja Morant plays. No shock there. If he's in there, man, going, I think you can kind of go to your sounds like preferred plan of mostly just crossing this game on and moving on to other spots, because there are some really, really good spots. We're still got to go to Denver Nuggets, who have some pretty insane value on their team as well, in my opinion. But if Ja's out, then you do have to consider Memphis. I'm with you. I'm kind of a Dylan Brooks hater, but I mean, he's going to get a lot of volume if Ja Morant sits. Matchup is good, like you said, and maybe you're choosing between Brooks and Jaren Jackson Jr. I'm not sure. Brandon, I would really want to play both those guys together, even if Ja Morant sits. Jaren Jackson too also has a really long history of foul trouble. It hasn't happened these first two games, but I guess maybe that's less of a concern because he's probably not going to play more than I don't know, low 30s minutes at most. Brandon, have you seen a minutes projection or a minutes cap at all on Jaren Jackson? If you have, let us know. And your thoughts here on Sacramento and Memphis.
Yeah, for minutes, I have him right now flirting around 25, 26.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, that restriction should be lifted soon. If not, hopefully maybe get a couple more.
I mean, if he's playing this well, it happens pretty quick. Usually he's a young guy. So
yeah, I mean, starting with him, I do like him a lot. He was actually my play of the day on Friday night.
Oh, nice. Yes.
And he smashed. And for me, if what you saw the first game, he put up 14 shots in 25 minutes on his first game back of the season, which to me, that was kind of positive, insight as far as how much he did get. Because usually you see a guy get 18 to 20 minutes, but he got 25. So, knowing that he only made 3 shots of those 14 and still had 23 fantasy points, we know he has tremendous upside on the defensive end. So we love that. And then also too, I mean, if he stays out of foul trouble, like you mentioned, he can have a lot of upside. So I do think you should consider him tonight. But I also think you should, consider his counterpart too, Steven Adams. He is cheaper. You get to save $1,000 there. You might also have the ability to see him get 27 to 29 minutes, possibly 30, depending on the size of, if Sabonis doesn't stay or doesn't get into foul trouble, then you could see Adams more on the floor there too. So I don't mind that. I think DK got the pricing kind of right with Sacramento. Like Mangone's talking about, it's really hard to pinpoint which one of these guys you would want to roster. But if you do want to go with one, it's a pace up spot. So who do I like in that scenario? I like De'Aaron Fox, 9,600. Like we mentioned before, it is difficult to try to find someone that you can pay up for, especially outside of Devin Booker and possibly Durant, if you want to go that way. So De'Aaron Fox is super interesting. But anyone else in these price points, they're kind of eating into each other as far as production. Sabonis you can consider, and you just got to hope that, one, he doesn't get in foul trouble, but also he takes a little bit more shots as well. The rebounding is great. We know that's going to be there, but, I like to see more offensive efficiency if I'm, willing to pay that 9,500 price tag. For Memphis, though, I think the Ja Morant news is huge in a lot of ways, right? Because if he plays, I think I shy away from Tyus Jones. And then also, too, the Dylan Brooks fade is weird and interesting discussion because he does have a massive ceiling. And if Morant is out, he's going to just chuck, right? I mean, but this guy is like a scorer. It's hard to get points elsewhere. Although I will say that Brooklyn game was super interesting. He put up 30 shots, but he also did it on the defensive side as well. He had 4 steals, and he, had 4 assists and 5 rebounds. So he kind of did it from everywhere. But typically, like Dylan Brooks is a guy that, you're going to get those raw scoring points. And, he's going to take a ton of shots. And with Bane gone, that adds even more opportunity for threes. So it's hard to say, okay, what do you do here? And do you still play him if Morant plays? That's another big question as well. Brooks grades out very well. As far as optimals and running the optimizer, he continues to populate, he continues to show up. So it's hard for me to say, what I want to do with him at this present moment. And so that Ja Morant news really plays a huge factor into this. And I think outside of those guys that I spoke of, John Conchar, he's going to play 32, 33 minutes. I think you can consider him as well at 6,200. If you look at his, previous couple last games, double-digit shot attempts. I'm okay with that. But he does it from all sides of the floor, right? Rebounds, assists. So I don't mind him either. And kind of that's going to be what my player pool looks like from this game. But it is a pace-up spot. And, there is some upside here. So you just have to really take into consideration. And then the last guy I'll go with is probably, people who are looking at Keegan Murray, right? Not the greatest fantasy player at the moment, but he is cheap, 4,400, 35 minutes last game, but outside of that, though, it wasn't really effective, right? And if you look at his box scores, it's very volatile.
Yeah.
Some days are great, some days aren't. But if you do get that 30+ minute opportunity and somehow, some way, the ball gets into his hand and he does take those double-digit shots, you got to be willing to want to roster him at least to a couple lineups. So 4,400, I don't mind it. And yeah, that's pretty much for me for this game.
Yeah, I like the Murray call a little bit. He'll be super low owned, I assume. Like you said, production minutes can kind of be all over the place with him. That's what you kind of expect with a rookie. But I've been impressed with what I've seen when he's on the floor. And those volatile players in basketball, people don't want to roster the guys where the minutes aren't super secure, the production isn't super secure, but you sometimes get low ownership, and in this case also a low price point on Keegan Murray at 4,400. So I don't know if I'll get to him playing 3 lineups tonight, but I do like that call. I don't like the matchup for Sabonis here much. Jaren Jackson, I think he led the league in blocks last year, so he's a good rim defender. And then Steven Adams, I think, is a tough matchup for Sabonis, who does kind of do a lot of the, the back to the basket type scoring underneath the hoop. Adams, obviously a pretty damn good, tough, rugged defender. So don't love Sabonis. Not that I don't think a ton of people were going there at $4,500 anyway. Let's keep it moving. Let's go out to Denver, our neck of the woods, Mangone, the Detroit Pistons and the Denver Nuggets. Nuggets are missing a lot of dudes. Looks like Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic are going to be out there doubtful right now. I guess we'll just talk about this game kind of assuming that they're going to be out. Still doubtful. Pretty rare for players to come back from the doubtful tag and end up playing, but you never know. Jeff Green, who's playing some decent minutes for Denver, also going to miss this game. It does look like they will get Aaron Gordon active. He's interesting, I think, at 5,600. And then Bones Highland is questionable. I kind of assume he's going to be in there coming off a huge game, but I guess we'll see. He has 2 big games in a row, right? But especially last one, 46.75 DraftKings points for him. Finally got kind of the role that we've been waiting for Bones to get for a long time. Took a lot of injuries to get it, but he took advantage of it last game. And then Bruce Brown, who's essentially the de facto point guard right now, putting up 8 and 7 assists in the last 2 games. He's 6K, can play him at point guard or small forward. He's interesting. Ish Smith, another guy we're going to have to keep a close eye on. I think maybe people then will overlook that if he's back. I think he could at least potentially cut in pretty significantly to the role of both Bruce Brown and Bones Highland. So, man, moving parts all over the place on Denver. It's news that we are probably not going to have till well after Brooklyn and Philadelphia starts. So a lot of strategy stuff going on. And, don't forget about the Detroit side. Still missing Cade Cunningham, Sadiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart, all 3 of those guys out for the Detroit Pistons. So they're shorthanded as well. There are a lot of things to talk about in this game, and going Denver 5.5-point favorites in Denver, 222 total. I'll throw the ball over to you. What do you see, Denver and Detroit?
Yeah, I think one of the keys to the slate is how many Nuggets are you playing? Is it 3, 4, 2, 5? I mean, how do you want to load up on? Obviously, the Bones Highland news is super important as well. And we may not have it in time. And if Bones plays, there is going to be someone that he's going to close, right? They're not just going to let Bones Highland sit on the bench, right? He's going to come off the bench.
They do like to play him less minutes than you would think, though. It happens all the time. I'm not saying it's going to happen tonight, but it is a little bit of a worry for me.
Yeah, I guess the point I'm getting at is between Jordan, Bones, Bruce Brown, KCP, Aaron Gordon, and Michael Porter, someone ain't closing there, right? And they're all going to have ownership. So trying to figure that out if Bones is in would obviously be really important. And that could be MPJ. I mean, he's just been so bad defensively. Got someone like Aaron Gordon who's good on defense. You got KCP who's lighting it up from 3. Bruce Brown's been great all around. And I think one thing that's going to be nice for DeAndre Jordan, yeah, I'm not a huge DeAndre Jordan guy, but at 4-5 and at the center position, I think he's a really good play because Detroit, I think, is going to play with some center options, right? Like they're clearly going to be playing with those like traditional bigs, it seems like, throughout the game, where I think DeAndre Jordan is safer than he is in some spots. Like if he was playing against the Nets tonight and you got Ben Simmons out there, you could see an opportunity for DeAndre Jordan not to be out there as much, just because of like the pace of play and how the game could go. So I think overall, DeAndre Jordan is someone that I like as an option. I love Bruce Brown. You can get him point guard or small forward. So guard and forward eligibility is great. 6K, he's going to be the point guard. I think he's going to, play with Bones at times too. They're going to stagger both those guys. Both great plays. We just need that news. That's really important. And then Aaron Gordon at 5'6" or Michael Porter Jr. at 5'8". My lean is Aaron Gordon. I think he is going to have a pretty good spot here. They're going to obviously use him a lot on Bogdanovich, I would assume, to be able to handle him. And both these teams don't play defense. And that's the game that you want Aaron Gordon in, right? You want Aaron Gordon in those games where you're running up and down the floor and no defense is going to be played, where he can just go coast to coast. Great spot for him. I think that him, Brown, and Highland are like the three best, followed by like DeAndre Jordan there, who's like the safe one. And then Michael Porter Jr. might be like the guy I'm not as excited about. I still might get him. It depends on how the news shakes out. But 5'8", I just prefer Aaron Gordon at 5'6". Yes, you can play both, though. And if there's one more guy to kind of mention that could get some run, maybe it'd be like a Zeke Nananji. I think that'd be maybe the guy at 3K that could just do everything for your lineups, could get you like an upgrade. That could be big. So wouldn't take him out of the question as well. If we go to the Detroit side, there's a lot to discuss over there. So Alec Burks' minutes have trended upwards, 24 and 25. Those 2 games before, he wasn't, I think he was out one game, and then like he was dealing with conditioning issues. And that's why the conditioning looks like it's getting better. And it's a game where no defense is being played. I mean, Alec Burks at 4'8" is a contrarian guard that I think you should be considering. Killian Hayes, you know what you're getting with him. You're either getting a ceiling game or you're getting more of like a floor game. I think it could be an interesting Killian Hayes spot, because I think defensively, the way Denver is going to set themselves up, I could see Bruce Brown on Ivy, and then I could see Bogdanovich on with Aaron Gordon defensively, and that could lead to a lot of Killian Hayes ball handling opportunities. As long as he could miss his shots, but the fact is, I think he's just going to have more usage than normal games. So I like this spot for Killian Hayes, more of like a contrarian guy. And I don't want to jam too many Pistons on my teams. I don't think I'm getting 2 of them in my lineup. You can make the argument that at 6'5", Bogdanovich is the safest option. One of those forwards that you can just get in there and you kind of feel good about. Like if it's Bogdanovich or Dylan Brooks for me, like I would lean Bogdanovich. I just think he's going to shoot a ton, and there's no defense being played on the Denver side. Yes, Aaron Gordon will give him some fits, but I think he's in the conversation. And then Ivy at 7K is a little pricey for me. I don't know if I'll end up getting there. There's other guards that I prefer, but I think Hamidou Diallo is not the craziest idea. It's a 4-game slate. We have a lot of good value. If you need a punt, right? Just like kind of how I said with Zeke Nananji, if you needed a complete punt to get you a lineup that gets you Devin Booker and De'Aaron Fox, right? If it gets you 2 studs, I wouldn't hate throwing him in there, but that's the only way I'm doing it. If it's in a stars and scrubs type of build. Again, not something I'm prioritizing. And I definitely might set a rule of max of 1 like Detroit Pistons on my team. Like if I see a team that has 2 of them, I just don't know how comfortable I'm going to be playing 2 of them on a team.
Yeah, Detroit's really interesting here. There's a lot of opportunity to go around, obviously, with Cunningham and some of the other guys out, but in their last game, they did play a 10-man rotation. Randone did the Detroit Pistons. And I believe all 10 of those guys that played in that game, they all played. This was a closely contested game against the Kings. They all played at least 16 minutes and nobody played over 34. And this is a game that was close. There wasn't like a ton of foul trouble. So Pistons are kind of a little bit of a hard team to trust right now, but there's also a lot of cheap price tags. I think the bigs for Detroit are a little bit interesting too. With Stewart out, I assume it'll be Bagley that gets the start at 4,700. I mean, you could go there. He's going to get to go up against DeAndre Jordan, right? Who is pretty damn dusty right now. I'm not a huge Marvin Bagley guy, but I do think there's some significant upside there for him. And then his backup too. I mean, Bagley is definitely, prone to get in foul trouble. If you look, just in limited time, these last 4 games, 5, 3, 3, 3 fouls. Their rookie, Jalen Duren, he's played 27, 22, and 25 minutes, has been over 20 fantasy points. in each of the last 3. He's only 4,100. And, I think he's 19, one of the youngest players in the NBA. You typically worry about the matchup for a guy like that, but he'll be going up against, Zeke Naji. So, I think that's a matchup he can win down low, potentially, for a super talented guy like Jalen Duren. So, yeah, Detroit, both sides, really. I think there's all kinds of pieces in play, obviously, depending on who ends up going for the Nuggets. So talk to us about this one, Randall.
Yeah, for the Detroit side, super interesting. You mentioned Marvin Bagley because he is productive, right? And we know he can score. It's hard to kind of gauge what his ceiling is because it's also something where, Jalen Duren, he's been very efficient. He's also been taking, away from Bagley in regards to he's also playing minutes, but they also don't really play together, or I guess like the coach doesn't want them on the floor together. And so you're seeing.
Yeah, in their last game, they played a combined total of 48 minutes and they subbed in and out for each other every single time. So it's going to be one or the other, most likely.
Yeah. So, and you're seeing right now, Jalen kind of be a little bit more efficient and showing a little bit more upside in regards to potential double-double opportunity as well. So, as far as, scoring, been very efficient at the basket. Great rebounder. He's young, obviously. So, he's still getting into the mix, the speed and understanding kind of the NBA. I don't mind these guys as GPP plays whatsoever, especially if you want to pivot off of DeAndre Jordan, where kind of maybe we might see a lot of the ownership go to. Well, you could play the flip side. I think Bagley and Jalen Duren in the center position, I would focus on those two. And then, going to Bodon. I don't mind him whatsoever. He's going to chuck, he's going to shoot, he's going to take double-digit shots. He's 6,500. He also can play small forward, power forward position. So I don't mind him. And then, when we go to the guards, this is an interesting conversation when it comes to Ivy and Burks and then also Killian Hayes. So, for me, looking at it, Killian Hayes is more of like a facilitator and Burks is more of the shooter. And for me, looking at kind of what I've seen over the last few games, Burks is taking double-digit shots, but he can also do a little bit outside of just scoring as well. And I just feel like when it comes to scoring, Burks might have the more upside. So I agree with going there. And then Jaden Ivey, I think for me, been very big on this guy. I do like him. I haven't seen kind of what I wanted to see yet as far as like that true breakout. But with Cade not there, it's hard to kind of not like him. So Ivy kind of, grades out as far as, optimal opportunity tonight. He does show up and does populate, but he is getting pricey, 7,000 on DK and, 6,900 on FanDuel. But I do like Ivy as well. And then going to the other side, Denver, I think Bruce Brown is a no-brainer tonight. 1.1 fantasy points per minute. You have no Murray, no Jokic, but Brown does everything, right? Like he has a very high floor, essentially, based on what he can do on all aspects of the ball, rebounding, assists, scoring, and also too, his ceiling's very high. And tonight, whether or not the Bones Highland news is there, I think I'm still not worried about that. So for me, I'm very big on Bruce Brown tonight. I do like him. And then obviously, when you look at all the other Nuggets, they grade out well because of their pricing and the amount of minutes that they're going to play. And so for that, GPP purposes, how many Nuggets do you want tonight? It's kind of like Miami, right? Last week when all those injuries and people were off, who was going to get the minutes? We saw Highsmith, we saw Jovic, things like that. Tonight, out of all the Nuggets that I do like, I probably would go Aaron Gordon outside of Bruce Brown of who I like the most. And then obviously Michael Porter and DeAndre Jordan. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's fine, but it's not really popping as far as being an optimal play. So maybe that's a spot where I want to pivot and leverage to it. And maybe, like I said before, Jalen Duren, it might be that nice pivot, save 400, could potentially get you that double-double, see maybe 30 DraftKings points. Yep. It's not unrealistic. It's not an egregious take. It's just something where if you think that that's a possibility, I don't mind it whatsoever. And I think for me, that's pretty much it. But I'm very high on Bruce Brown tonight in this game.
Yeah. Do you like Brown even if Bones and Ish Smith are in there?
Yeah, I do actually. Just because for me, he can do everything. Like I said, if he was someone like, like in the previous game, Dylan Brooks, who's kind of heavy dependent on, raw scoring. That's not the case with Brown. I feel like he's multidimensional with his game. So, and he can do it. So for me, I'm okay with paying that price tag and kind of sticking with playing Bruce Brown tonight.
Yeah. Ish Smith has missed the last 9 games. So at that point, you just kind of assume until you actually see him out there, and hadn't really been playing a lot either. And yeah, Brown.
And how many minutes will he get? And will that affect the rotation?
Yeah,
it's hard to say.
I'm with you. I like Bruce Brown quite a bit. Yeah, I just think he could potentially lose some of that point guard role if Ish comes back and plays. And Mike Malone does some weird stuff sometimes. So certainly going to be interested to see who's in there for Denver.
DC, can I ask you a coaching question? This could be like just over the top, could be like overthinking, but like, what do you think of Dwayne Casey with the rookies in Denver for like the first time, right? Because like the altitude, does that matter at all, right? Like he's just the guy that tinkers with minutes. Like, and I wouldn't be shocked if he like rode some vets out a little harder. Like, does that like make any sense to you as an idea? Because I just know Dwayne Casey tinkers with minutes to a ridiculous degree. And I'm just thinking Jaden Ivey, like if he goes out there for like 22 minutes, I wouldn't be shocked. And if you played him, you'd be pretty tilted by that.
Yeah. I don't think I'm going to get to Jaden Ivey myself. I think that's a good point. And
it could help Hayes though, right? Hayes has played there. Like he's a second year player.
The thing with Detroit for me is if you're playing a lot of lineups, or even if, however many lineups you're playing, they've got a lot of guys where I would make a rule kind of max one, like Hayes, Burks, and Ivy. I think you want probably just one of those guys. They're all kind of competing for that playmaking role, especially Hayes and Burks, I think are in direct competition for those minutes. It could go either way. And then the 2 centers, right? Bagley and Jalen Duren. I'm not going to play both those guys. They're directly competing for the center minutes too. So yeah, Detroit has a lot of, I think, good pieces, but pieces you got to just be careful with who on any individual lineup. You got to make sure you don't get overexposed to guys that are going to play a max of 48 combined minutes. So yeah, that's Detroit, Denver, really interesting game. We'll go to the last game of the night, the LA Lakers and the Phoenix Suns. Moderate total here, sitting at 227. The Suns are 9.5 point favorites, continue to get the job done, even in the absence of Chris Paul, who has been ruled out. He's been out a couple weeks now. We've seen Cameron Payne step into that role and for the most part played pretty well and put up some big games as well. His price is getting up there though, 7,100. Booker, we know what he can do. Gets an expanded role without Paul out there, but Payne does, I think, kind of close enough to what CP3 does offensively that Booker's role isn't as expanded, I think, as maybe some people think it is when CP3 is out. That's my take, at least. And then on the Lakers side, LeBron James going to miss another game. He's been out basically the same time period that CP3 has been out, Mangone. Anthony Davis has really stepped up, over 60 fantasy points in each of the last 3 games. Some really, really good matchups for him. I think this one is a little bit tougher, but he's been an absolute monster. Officially questionable, or probable. I'm seeing that probable is not a thing in the NBA, but they list him as that anyway. But anyway, Davis, I would assume is going to be out there. 10.5K. I do think he's a pretty good spend up. I think Booker and Anthony Davis will be 2 of the more popular spend ups on this slate. Talk to me, Mangone, about the Lakers and the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, I love this spot for AD. Just depends if you can get there with the price tag, right? Most people are going to go Devin Booker over AD, but I mean, AD is going to be a little lower owned. So I like him a lot. 10.5, if you can pay that tag, I think it's worth going to. And listen, yes, matchup a little tougher, but I'm not that worried about it because they're just giving him the ball and they're just saying, go be an alpha and go get the job done. And he's just doing it. So, and I'm not worried about Austin Reeves or Dennis Schroeder or Lonnie Walker, or Pat Beverly, any of these guys kind of getting in the way of that. No concerns about that at all. Westbrook at 8.3, tough to get to that price tag. If for some reason you are backloaded enough with your lineups and you are just sitting dead and you really think you're just so far behind, you could make a Russell Westbrook pivot if you have AD in the util spot and like move some other stuff around. Not saying I'm going to do it though. I don't think it's the greatest idea, but it's there. I'm not going to pay 8.3 for Russell Westbrook. If I play any other Laker, it's maybe it's like a Troy Brown or something. Just for cheap.
You don't want the other Lakers, man.
Yeah, I don't. You're right. So let's just move on. Let's talk about the Suns, because there are some guys I actually want to talk about here, and I'll take up some time for sure discussing these guys because Devin Booker for one at 9.3. Really good option, someone that you want to look to go to. I think he's going to be someone that's going to be very popular. If you play him, right, and then you play Nuggets and you play Sixers, like where are you getting different, right? You got to find somewhere. So at least be at least cognizant of that, right? Think like, hey, I can't just play Booker and play like Sixers and Nuggets, because then I only have one other spot I feel like to be different. So that's something just like to think about in the back of your mind. And if you are going to do that, maybe be different with some of those Nuggets or Sixers. Maybe it's making a really big fade of someone. Like maybe it's like a Shake Milton fade, or maybe it's maybe if Bones Highland is really high owned and he's in, maybe you fade that, right? That's kind of the way you could do it. Not saying that's what I'm going to do, but think about those things while building out your lineups. DeAndre Ayton at 6'8", not someone I am dying to play today. I just think there's other center options I prefer. Some of these power forwards, I don't mind sliding into that center spot as well. So yeah, I think I'm going to take the chance with AD down there, and he's been playing great overall. I think he's got the opportunity to give DeAndre Ayton some fits. If you look at some of the numbers on DeAndre Ayton and Torrey Craig, who I want to discuss, we'll start there just to have the stat muse stuff up. With Chris Paul out, Torrey Craig has been really strong. I mean, you can play him at power forward or center. He's 4.9K. Here are the numbers: 28 DK points, 29.5, 37, 28.25, 19.5, and 15.75. I think this is a great spot for him, especially if you're worried about AD a little bit. You can see Ayton and AD banging down low and just Torrey Craig mopping up all those rebounds while Ayton's trying to box him out and trying to give him fits as much as possible. So I really like this spot for Torrey Craig. I think he's a really interesting contrarian option that other people are not going to be looking to go to. I'm going to pull up the DeAndre Ayton logs now, because with Chris Paul out, there are some good games, but there are other games that are not that exciting. He had 36.25, which at 6.8K, you could survive that, right? That's not a score that you say, okay, I'm dusted, I'm going to absolutely lose the slate. 48, yeah, you're probably in trouble at 6'8" if he drops 48. That's totally fair. 23.75, 36, 27.25, and 18.5. I just think there's a lot of opportunity to make a really strong fade on Ayton while he's popping on teams. And I think he's someone that I'm not getting exposure to today. I'll take chances on Torrey Craig for cheaper to upgrade another spot in my lineup. Maybe I'll take a chance on going like Campaign at 7.1K, who has a ton of upside. And if that shot's falling, it's going to work out pretty well for him. Devin Booker, talked about him as a great spend up. And maybe like the contrarian route is saying, hey, I'm going to play Payne and I'm going to play Booker, and I'm just getting all that usage against the Lakers, just absolutely dominating them. I think it's a great spot for a lot of these Suns. My big fade is going to be Ayton on the Sun side. And then the contrarian guys that I like, I mean, Payne's not super contrarian. I'd say Craig is more the contrarian option. And then I really like Booker and Campaign as good plays.
Yeah, I really like the Torrey Craig call there at 4,900. Like you said, he's been playing well. And if you look at the last two games, he played 25 minutes against the Knicks. That was a blowout. Most of the Suns starters didn't play in the fourth quarter, including Craig. And in the previous game against Utah, another strong performance from him, 28 minutes, but he was in foul trouble from the get-go in that one. So I do think, there's even more minutes upside than he's shown. I think he could get up to potentially 35 minutes if things break right for him. Maybe Ayton gets in foul trouble, and the Lakers still starting Anthony Davis at the 5, right? Yeah, they are. So I do think it'll almost certainly be DeAndre Ayton who's given the primary defense assignment on Anthony Davis, which should leave Torrey Craig to go up against, some pretty bad power forwards out there for the Lakers. So I like that Torrey Craig call. Let's throw it to you, Randone, Lakers and Phoenix. What do you see?
Yeah, I'm pretty much in alignment with Mangone on everything he said. Devin Booker averaging 1.4 fantasy points per minute. With Chris Paul not on the floor, the usage is there, the upside is there as well. And for me, it's hard for me to shy away from him tonight. He's just in a great spot. The only thing I do kind of worry about it is potential blowout risk here. I just don't know, if this Lakers team can hang with this Suns team. But I will say that, Ayton, I could see myself fading as well. I just think for me, I think I like other areas. I like maybe paying down a little bit for Jaren Jackson Jr., Ben Simmons, Steven Adams, we talked about earlier. But to be honest with you, I didn't really look at the Torrey Craig, call, and that's actually pretty sharp right there. I like that 4,900, looking kind of at his recent last 4 or 5 games. If he's someone that does go under owned, from what I'm looking here, he does play his 28, 29 minutes, and he gets there. I don't mind this play whatsoever. So he's someone that I would probably throw into the pool from the Sun side of the ball. Outside of that, though, I'm going to stay away from like Damon Lee or Biyombo or just any of those other guys. They're just not for me. Cameron Payne, if he continues to shoot up these shots and it does go in, obviously he does grade out pretty well, plays 33, 34 minutes. I'm totally okay with that. The usage is up, it's high. So on the other side of the ball, though, we talked about it a lot. With LeBron James off the floor, A. Davis his usage is skyrocket, right? And you could tell kind of what's been happening these last few games. There's so much upside there. I think the only thing you just have to worry about is the back tightness, if that's something that gets triggered or something hits in this matchup. But, for me, there's upside there, right? And it's hard for me to shy away from that. Anything else, though, like looking at it from like a grade standpoint and an optimal standpoint, nothing really grades out well as far as any of these other Lakers. I will say, if you're wanting to play like the narrative that they do get blown out, and it's just something where, we see a little bit more of the reserves, a guy who just came on this season from injury, Thomas Bryant, center. He is 3,400, started 13 minutes in his first game back, 23 minutes in his last game in a blowout against the Spurs. Was 5 for 5 from the field. He almost had a double-double, actually, 15 points, 9 rebounds. There is upside there. And I mean, he if people don't remember him from Washington, dude was solid, pretty solid at the 5. So I don't mind this play. And it's something that you can take into consideration. If he does get his 25 minutes, like let's just say that he bumps him up to 25 minutes tonight, which from what I have here, I have him tonight at 21 minutes. So if he does get the 25 though, that's something where, he could hit that 30-point mark. Not much ownership going there possibly. It could be one of those things where it sneaks in late, blowout, and then, he ends up running the table for, the optimal lineup of the night. So just something to take into consideration. But outside of that, I'm not touching anything else besides AD, Thomas Bryant from the Lakers side.
Yeah, probably if you're playing Bryant, you're not playing AD with him, right? You're kind of hoping for something to happen for AD or blowout. So yeah, I'm not sure I would pair those, but I do like the Thomas Bryant call, the Torrey Craig call there. Good stuff. That's all 4 games. Let's get to the plays of the day. You guys did pretty good with the like button. We do appreciate you watching. I'll start with myself. I'm going to another low-owned center. It actually seems like there's a bunch of them you can play tonight. I'm going back to the Detroit Pistons, missing Isaiah Stewart tonight. Going to the rookie, Jalen Duren. Had 2 good games in a row. He split minutes with Marvin Bagley, but he's the younger player. I think he's the higher upside guy, their number 1 pick. And I think he's got a path to 25 plus minutes. I like the matchup for him, either against DeAndre Jordan or against the, who has ever Denver's running out there as a backup center, probably Inaji. Jalen Duren, he's projected to be 3 to 5% owned at 4,100. I think he's got a good shot at 25 fantasy points. So I'll go with him as the mom's basement play of the day. Travis, let's go to you. Sweet Travis play of the day. Who do you got for us?
I think after the rant I did, I think it's got to be Torrey Craig, right? I mean, I think he's a really good contrarian forward option that you can go to. You can play even at center too. Like tonight is not a night that there's all these amazing center options. Like, yes, DeAndre Jordan's a good value center that we talked about, but we saw Bamba bust yesterday as a good value center. I don't mind plugging in some forwards at the center spot if you think the forward position has some value to plug in some options and give you a different build than the field. So, if you're going to fade someone like DeAndre Ayton, why not Torrey Craig at the center spot possibly? Put him at forward too if you like, but Torrey Craig is my play of the day.
There you go. 2 lower owned, cheaper centers for you. Let's go over to Randone. Not the fanciest shirt today. I've seen some better selections out of you, Randone. The purple selection you had last time, I did prefer over that boring white you got on. But hey, we'll stick with it. Fancy shirt play of the day, Randone. Who do you got?
Man. It's a Tuesday. Still recovering from a long Sunday night, so didn't have a chance to really dig deep into the closet and pull something out. But we'll come out fresh on Friday.
Randall, sometimes the ladies like it just nice white tee, right? I mean,
I agree.
It's simple. It's basic.
You wouldn't know, man. Go and get out of here.
But I will say, you took my play, DC. I was actually gonna rock with you on the Jalen Duren play, so I do love that. So I'm gonna keep it simple though. I'm going to go to who I kind of spoke highly about earlier. Obviously, there's ownership going to go to him a little bit, and that's okay. Bruce Brown, though, I talked about the 1.1 fantasy points per minute, kind of does everything. But for me, when it comes to a tournament, the floor is very high, but the ceiling's even higher, and he can do it from everywhere. So I do like this play tonight, and I'm hoping that maybe injury news comes out a little bit late, and we get the opportunity to give him even a little bit more of a bump. So Bruce Brown, I'm going to go with him tonight as my play of the day.
Awesome stuff. Bruce Brown, the fancy shirt play of the day. That'll wrap it for the 4 games tonight. Of course, if you remember, head on over for the Up to Lock show. Lock is half an hour later than normal, so that show will start, I think, 45 minutes or an hour before lock, taking you all the way down breaking down the news as it comes out, which there's going to be likely some significant news to talk about on that show. If you are not a member and want to be one, we do have a special promo code. We don't offer them all the time, but this is a special one, Turkey50 for 50% off your first month's payment. You're going to package that with SaberSim if you so choose. One of the best offers that we'll have out there all year long. That will do it for Randone. 4-man gone. I'm DC, and we'll check you next time. Get us out of here, Simon.